Reaction
by
Homethings.
Nice gold dust.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Reaction by Homethings. Today, so opposite me, and if you can view this as well because we're recording it live, is Youth Goodyear. Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good, how are you?
I'm good. It's wet outside.
It's so wet and
but
rainy.
I'm warm on the inside and I'm ready to just get talking.
It's Storm Jorge. Did you know that?
Is it?
Yeah.
There's been like 5 storms in a row. It's
I
like,
know.
what's happening?
And you know that everyone's up in arms because apparently this should be called Storm Ellen. This is how exciting my life is. But the Spanish named it, so it's Jorge. And everyone is pissed. People are pissed off with Jorge and like it's Jones.
I love it, man. We need more names. I want Storm Mohammed, yo. Next, come on, yo. Let's take this great. Like, I
oh my
want it
god.
big.
Do you know, it just all needs to be very diverse and very inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So, Youth, you are BBC presenter, music creator, business founder, Depop Leader. But before we get into all those really cool things, I want to know your bonkers bits of the week.
Ooh.
Did you think about it?
I did think about it. And you only gave me an hour, but I was like, at first I was like, all I've been doing is working the whole week. And then I was like, no, I did do some cool stuff. So,
Tell me.
I have my MacBook here,
Okay.
and I know that this is a podcast, and y'all can't see this.
Okay, we'll try and describe.
But I got I went to a rave in South London,
Fun.
and I got to meet one of the best musicians in underground culture, who's Goldie. And
Oh my gosh, amazing.
And when I met him, he was giving out these stickers.
Off his face.
So his face is basically eyes wide open, mouth wide open, gold teeth, and looking like he's just, I don't even know, like someone's done something really naughty to him.
Oh my god,
So,
I absolutely love that.
I've stuck it on my MacBook. And I've also got my friend's sticker, the London Vagabond Makes Me Horny, which is my
I think
my
that's so
my
great.
friend's brand. And
Do you know what we'll do at the end? We'll take a picture with you, with the MacBook.
With
and
Goldie?
then- With Goldie.
Can we tag Goldie?
We can tag him. Maybe we should get him on the show.
Actually, yo,
Tweet him.
he's down, yo. He's down.
Oh my god, I love that. Well, mine is not anywhere near as fun or as edgy or as cool as that. Mine is something that I saw the other day, like a fact. So I have this facts app,
Please tell me.
which is very useful. Did you know that in 2016, Mozart sold more CDs than Beyonce?
In 2016?
Yeah, people were still buying CDs in 2016, which is the first shocking fact, to be
Wow.
honest. And second of all, Mozart.
That's incredible. I
It
think it's because older people who listen to Mozart are generally older, the demographic, and those people are more likely to buy CDs.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
that he sold more music, but he sold more
Yeah, yeah.
CDs.
That's still crazy though. It's crazy how people
It
buy
is.
CDs. It's like, wow.
Do you like Mozart?
Yeah, I don't listen to too much classical. I listen to a lot of like traditional jazz.
Mozart
is dope though.
My god, I love jazz music so
Yeah.
much. Did you every night when I get home, I'm like, God, I live such a good life.
I'm gonna send you.
Listen to jazz.
I'm gonna send you some new jazz.
Have you ever listened to the Blazo album?
Blazo.
Okay, we'll do an album off the jazz. Oh my god,
Okay.
I love that. I love how this has evolved so quickly. Like BFFs, love it. So you, apart from your horrible cough, introduce yourself. So I did a little bit of a quick intro, but you tell me, who are you? What's your name? Where'd you come from? Very still a black blind date. Give me a top line.
Mr. Black. Okay, my name is Youth Goodyear or Youth ID. I am everything that you said. I'm a BBC presenter, a TV show with Fiona Short. That's called Dead Stuck. We're working on some other stuff with BBC.
So excited.
I also make music on the Youth ID. And what else do I sell? Vintage clothes and high vintage clothes, designer clothes, sportswear, travel the world finding clothes. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do, those 3 things: music, clothing, and TV, BBC.
So just a little bit of stuff.
Just a couple things.
Just a little thing, keep me busy, keeps you busy, keeps you out of trouble. So the Youth Club store, right? Your
That is the
store on
brand.
Depop. Your
Yeah.
brand, let's call it the brand, yeah.
Mm,
It's
it-
got over 100,000 followers on
That's
Depop.
right,
I was
yeah,
checking
yeah.
out yesterday and I was envious and scared. What inspired you to start that journey? Like, when did that journey start? When did you decide that's something you want to do? Was it just like something you did as a passion project, or did you wake up one day like, actually, I want to start a business and this is what I want to do?
So I was living in London at the time. It's like maybe 4 years ago, and I always thought selling clothes was super cool. One of my ex-girlfriends, her baby sister sold clothes on Depop. I always knew about Depop. It was still early in the days, and I was like, man, that's just cool, man. Imagine just like buying clothes, modeling them in the mirror, shopping, selling them for more money, and then going to buy more clothes and traveling with it. I'm like, that is a cool lifestyle.
The dream life.
And I think I just literally manifested it so much and visualized it so much. It started to become a reality. So when I was in Thailand, I was living in Thailand at the time, traveling.
That's awesome.
It was good. I had a good time. I'd go to like all these warehouses just full of just kind of rubbish, basically, what people would conceive as rubbish, and I'd find out treats, 1 in every 200 items, and then by the time I had like 150, 200 items, came back to England, worked in my bar job, blah blah blah. Got my friend in Thailand to send all the clothes back.
Wow.
The first 200 pieces, I sold all of them and just reinvested. And I think I was so inspired at the time as well because I was working a job that I wasn't really interested in. So I was like, this is my way out for now. Like, I can make money. I remember selling my first item and just thinking, this really works? Like, people really buy things for more than you bought it. I was like, I'm going to really just go ham.
That is so
voila.
true. And why do you think that is? Like, what do you think the fascination was? I guess maybe then versus now. Like, when you went to Thailand and you were looking, were you just looking for items that were good enough quality to sell? Was there like a style behind it? You're like, I want to make a brand from this? Or was it literally like, I'm just going to see what sticks, basically?
Well, first of all, the reason I started was because I was bored. Like, I wasn't...
As all good ideas come from.
Yeah, I was just there, like, nothing was really going on. I was having fun, yeah, but I was having to stay in the same place, so I was kind of like, just really bored. So from there, I decided I was going to, start thrifting, and like, the taste is really what sets the brand as its own identity.
Yeah.
Because it's like what I'm into. And I guess what I am into is vintage, 90s, quality, brands, things that have cultural identity, like Tommy Hilfiger, Ralph Lauren, Stone Island, stuff like that.
Amazing.
So it really comes from myself.
That's really cool. So I guess that's good to know that obviously what you sell is probably stuff that you would wear, and like that comes from a truth of you being like, actually this stuff is cool and I think other people will find it cool too. Why do you think, especially in today's culture in 2020, that like thrifting and secondhand clothing has had such like a revival, and like, resale is lifted up, like Depop, the fact that you've got 100,000 followers on like a resale platform, it's not even new clothing.
110.
110, sorry. Oh my god. Actually, I think it's 112.
It is about 112,
I
yeah.
think it's 112.
I haven't checked it.
I've done some research.
Wow.
As of this morning, it was 112. Why do you think that's become like so popular? Do you think it's just like a cultural thing? Do you think it's a shift in behaviours, or what do you think it is?
I think there's a number of factors why. First of all, thrifting, people finding the clothes has become a big, a new thing. Not a new thing, but bigger than ever, and also why people buying secondhand. I think, first of all, people like to shop, and people like unique things. I think that, if you're shopping on Top Street and River Island.
Top Street.
I didn't even know what they're called. Top Shop. See, I don't even know. This is a testament to the fact I don't know. These brands.
I absolutely love.
If she Top Street and River Shop, Top Street. Okay, let's start.
Okay, Dad. Thanks, Dad.
If you're shopping on High Street, you're force fed. These are the 3 options for this season which you can wear. Now, if you're shopping vintage, you're looking at basically like up to 100 years worth of clothing. So you're really picking out what you like as opposed to being force fed. Take these options, and I think that's one part. Also, in terms of people are more conscious than ever. It's because we've got access, like so much access to the internet. People posting up things. There's media's being decentralized. Before we were also force-fed radio and TV. Now that's all kind of obsolete in a way, and it's about YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and whatever else is going on. So
TikTok.
I think it's just consciousness, and I think it's people wanting more. People always wanting more. Like, how can we do better? That's what it's about being a human. Like, sit down and like, how can I do this better? Yeah,
100%. Totally agree. And I think you're right. I think in general, the kind of upcycling culture is having a revival because people are becoming more aware. So not just in clothes, but like in all areas. I think there's a mindset now, if you can reuse something, and if that's designed for a reuse purpose, then that maybe has got slightly more appeal. And I guess it's a real contrast to especially in our kind of generation of, you know, the millennials and having a real throwaway culture.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just a complete opinion piece, but I guess why do you think that we have been so hardwired, and I think it's really, really hard to unpick, that you always need something new? Because that's something I've definitely struggled with, is like this weird societal pressure that I must buy new, and actually that, you know, that mindset that we've been fed to is realistically what's adding and contributing to the environmental shebang that we're facing right now.
I think for people that struggle with that, it's difficult for me to say, because on one hand I'd say I never really felt that, but I never really felt that, honestly. So it's difficult for me to it's difficult for me to say. I never really felt like I needed something new. I always needed something dope.
Yeah.
Like I needed something dope. But I've been shopping vintage for like 15 years now or something. No, yeah, about 15 years now. So it's kind of like I kind of grew up with shopping vintage. Like as soon as I was 16, I was shopping 16, 17, I was shopping secondhand. So I never really had time to kind of live that culture. But I guess it's just I guess it's also who are your peers? Who do you look? Everyone has people they look up to some degree.
Right.
Like whether it's, I don't know, you know, someone of Love Island, or whether it's like a recording artist and FK Twigs, whoever else. And I think it's like, what are these people doing? And you know, a lot of the celebrity kind of TV culture, it's sponsored by these fashion brands, and it's kind of this perpetual cycle where you end up investing in this thing just because you like the person, but you don't necessarily like the product, and you're convinced to think that you need something new all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas I believe in buying something quality that's going to last.
Absolutely, and I think that's a nice mindset, and it's interesting that you never felt that kind of pressure, because I think, especially looking at Gen Z in particular, and maybe a little bit the end of millennials, is, I don't know, I guess maybe traditionally, and like, I feel it a little bit less so. I was almost a little bit similar to you, like on the back wave of when I was like 16, 17, 18, especially at uni when I did a fashion degree, thinking that, and it was more a money thing, thinking that buying secondhand and vintage and going charity shopping and then styling it up was like a really cool thing to do. But I think there still is a bit of a weird association, and it's maybe actually comes from like British class roots, if you think about it, of thinking that secondhand is like a hand-me-down, and it's like means that you don't have money, and it's like a real class thing perhaps. What, like, I guess, what do you think about that?
I totally agree, of course, man. I mean, like, this is something that for, you know, thousands of years, you know, clothes that aren't, or definitely hundreds of years, clothes that aren't new are pass-me-downs, and it's seen as, you know, a class thing, like, you don't have the money to do this. Now we're moving slowly into an era, you know, kids that are like 14 now, that have been growing up with vintage since they were like 10 and seen it on Instagram and whatever, they're starting to understand that it's not this whole separate thing where it's you know, it's a lower class. You know, actually a big, you know, a dope sweater now that's vintage might sell for like £100, £120, £150. I've seen them go for, and it's a higher quality. So I think that with our era, we still kind of hold on to that a little bit, but I think with the new era, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, which is refreshing, I think, and actually nice to see.
Yeah. I mean, the big changes like this take a few generations to kind of seep in. They always do.
Definitely. Everything
does, but and I guess we're seeing it really fast, I think.
Definitely. So with all the changes that are coming about, something obviously Depop has had such a huge surge. It is not a specifically new thing, but I think now people are becoming so aware of it and really using that as the destination of place to go, especially people who are more conscious about not buying into fast fashion, not supporting brands like huge conglomerates who actually are killing off our planet. Another interesting, I guess, movement that's happening is the clothes rental service, and has really kind of, a lot of the ones that I follow are really positioning themselves, you know, as they are the environmentally friendly option, and you know, you're not buying new. I mean, you'd be biased, I guess, if I asked you to pick rental versus resale, but like, what is your view on that? And like, is it something you think about doing, or?
Well, it's something I do already. We already as Youth Club Store, we hire. Go follow Youth Club Store as well on Instagram.
Little sneaky plug.
Youth Club Store, We already hired to a lot of musicians. We work with a lot of stylists. I just hired for a BBC film,
Awesome.
which we're not allowed to talk about yet, which comes out maybe this year.
Fun.
Yeah. So like I'm already hiring stuff, but in terms of like that's more on an artist or actor level. But we're talking about a public level.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge space for someone to come in and just sweep that up.
Yeah.
It was like with Depop. Depop just came at the right time. When my friend Simon Beckerman created Depop maybe like 7 years ago, he actually made it for a magazine that he was selling, and when he put the app out there, people just started making it their own and selling their own thing, and he was like, wow, this is even bigger than his original idea.
That's
you know,
so cool.
So I just think, yeah, it's just an interesting time. I think rentals versus like buying, I think we're so conditioned to buy that that's always going to be at the forefront of our mind. But I think there's definitely a massive scene for hiring and renting, especially with high-end pieces.
100%.
You know, Chanel pieces for like £600, you can get it for £80 or 60 quid or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. It's interesting though, because I think you're right. We are still conditioned to buy, and so even though you're buying a more sustainable option, you're still really going through that weird endorphin-led process of buying and getting the satisfaction of like, yes, I just bought something new, even though it's not new. But you know what? It's a more sustainable option. So let's promote that. So talking about people being more sustainable, lots of brands like H&M, for example, and millions of others, but they're the only one that I've kind of become really aware of recently, are releasing like conscious collections and ranges that they claim are doing XYZ and are better for the planet because of ABC, and a lot of kind of return back schemes, you know, like if you return back a top, we'll give you 10% off your next purchase, etc. Do you think that big, and I'm not talking about like small nice little independent brands, I'm talking about like the big global brands, do you think that them promoting themselves as doing these conscious and sustainable range is a good thing? Do you think maybe it's a little tad greenwashing? Do you think some change is better than no change? Like, what's your view on that?
I think most of the things that you said, I think that a lot of it is greenwashing. Obviously, a bulldozers came into the industry, which is like, hey, we want to buy secondhand clothes. And they're like, oh, we can't make money off this. This cannot happen. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I was speaking to my friend Ed Perkin yesterday about this. By the way, the secondhand clothing industry, as a fact, is going to double in 3 years.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Which is like, that's just unreal for like, in terms of like progression.
Yeah, it's mad.
But me and Ed were talking about this last night, and I think that they're just scared and they're finding ways, one, to make money off it, because it's, you know, they don't, in their format at the minute, they don't make money off it. And number two, they feel like they need to be a part of it. So there is a lot of greenwashing going on. I mean, if you just look into like a lot of the brands that you're talking about, you know, it's up to us to do our own research and find out what these brands are doing. And yes, they might be doing something which is slightly more ethical, but, you know, if you're looking at the whole business model, a lot of them are highly unethical. And when this is the thing as well, when you purchase something, you are investing not just financially but emotionally and politically into something that you believe in. Like, it's like, do you believe in child labor? Like, do you believe in people getting paid 20p an hour? Do you believe in people in Bangladesh, you know, with no human resources and, you know, 1,000, how many people was it that died? Like 1,000 people or something.
Oh my gosh,
you know,
horrendous.
You're investing in that when you buy something. So it's up to us to be conscious, and, you know, I think it's our social responsibility to at least have an understanding, and then if you want to go and buy it, but have an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, make that educated decision. Because that's, I think, what's interesting as well, is we're so, at the moment, kind of bombarded with the kind of climate crisis, but sometimes often people forget, like you said, the humanitarian crisis that is behind a lot of these huge brands as well, and like what goes on behind the scenes, and it's really quite a dark, horrible world that if it was exposed, you would hope people would make better decisions, but I guess you never know. It's an educational piece. So let's talk about Gen Z a little bit, and going back to linking them with the climate crisis, and I guess because they are really kind of the movers and shakers, the leaders of this huge movement. Why do you think specifically, and I mean neither of us are Gen Z, RIP our youth, why do you think that it's captured their imagination specifically?
I think that Gen Z are most interested in climate change because I think it's affecting them the most. Yeah. You know, someone who's 50 years old, it's, you know, I don't know, it's not to say that they've lived their life, but you know, when you're young and when you have aspects for the future and they're looking bleak, you know, it's on you to make change. It's the young people that are wanting to make change. It always has been through society. You know, you go back 100, 200 years, it's the young people that want to make the change. Yeah. I also think, again, the networking of the internet and us being able to see what's happening and, you know, see truth. I think that's really important. Not to say that everything on the internet is true, but I think that just the accessibility to see things prompts people to think, okay, this is, I don't want to be a part of this, or I want to be a part of this, or how can we change this? Yeah. Whereas before, it wasn't like that, like even 20 years ago.
So do you think that kind of the internet and technology, and I guess maybe because Gen Z have grown up with this technology, so they've grown up, it's like you said, I can't even remember what that search engine you mentioned was before, but that, to us that was like a new thing, and like it was, we grew up with that, but not from like day one. We weren't born into a technical world, which now a lot of younger generations are. Do you think, and I mean you kind of touched upon it, but if we expand on it, do you think that the internet and technology, specifically I guess technology, is helping to lead those conversations and educate people, or do you think there's a part of it which might be adding to the confusion a little bit as well? Because like you said, not everything you read is true, and a lot of people have very polarizing views, and there's fake news. Like, I guess, how do you think technology has a role to play? I
think like the internet as it is now, although like, you know, I've been using it for like 15 years or whatever, it's still very much OG. Although I've been using it for a long time and many people have, it's still in its primary years. This is still kindergarten for the internet. This is like, you know, first year of school. Not even first year of school. This is nursery.
This is nursery.
Yeah, this is nursery. You still play.
You haven't even left the hospital. Let's be honest.
Yo, you're in the womb, man. You're in the womb right now.
Month eight.
Yeah, month 8 in the womb. So it's like we're still working this thing out. We've got this huge power which everyone's involved with. Companies want to get in on it. Individuals want to get in on it. The whole world. My grandma has to understand it to be able to speak to us on WhatsApp, because that is the internet. So we're all trying to understand this thing, and I think that with that comes 1, a lot of information, 2, a lot of confusion, but 3, also a lot of opportunity. So I think I agree with what you're saying. There is confusion and there is a lot of fake news, and I can go and put anything I want out there, and I've even, you know, seen people mistakenly, you know, post something as being this and it's actually not, it's that. Yeah. But I think that generally the fact that everyone can communicate with each other in masses is usually always a really good thing, because it brings together communities, and communities make change.
100%. Yes, nailed it.
That was a good punchline at the end. Can we put it at the start?
That was fantastic. Communities make change. Maybe that should be the title of the podcast.
Yeah, that could rap.
I mean, I spent time drafting one, but you know what? Fuck it, fine, let's change it. So communities, but let's go back to you. And this is something I heard through the grapevine. Tim. He told me that you are a vegan. Yes, correct?
I'm vegan, yeah.
Nice vegan water that you're drinking there right now.
So sexy.
What? Can you taste the orange?
I could taste something in it. Did you put something in it?
Yeah, drugs. I'm joking.
I thought I was so excited.
You wanted to really pull the truth out of you and your life.
What else you want to know?
I'll tell you everything. The BBC documentary.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, imagine. Get sacked. Jobless.
It's fine, you can work here, it's all good. So and I mean, sometimes I feel like this is a loose tie, but I think I find it interesting on a personal level, especially because I think there is such a huge conversation, and it's a very polarizing conversation about diet and sustainability. We've all seen documentaries, we've all watched the Netflix shows, which is like, meat's killing the planet, blah, 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 blah. And I'm also vegan too, by the way, so I'm not trying to throw shade. But what was your decision in the first place for being a vegan? Is it something you've always done? And 2, what are your views on kind of more sustainable diets now? And do you see veganism as something that we should all, not, you know, we don't ever force feed literally people to do stuff, but do you think that's something that we should be taking note of in terms of the bigger planetarian crisis, or do you think they're not really linked at all?
I think they're linked. I think first of all, how I became vegan was, I was living in Birmingham at the time before I moved to London, and I think when I started diving into myself, like spiritually, certain things just started to drop out of my life, including people as well. It wasn't just, meat, but people started to drop out of my life. And I think that when you're more in alignment with the truth and your true self, I think that things, you're like a snake, you know what I mean? Like you're like a snake, you start to shed, you start to shed things, and you shed people, and you shed bad habits and things that weren't good for you when you're more in alignment with yourself. And that was what was happening to me. So I didn't know why I stopped eating meat until 6 months after. And then I was like, well, actually, I'm going to stop eating fish as well. Stop eating fish. And I was like, what's going on? And then I started to research about it with like dairy and the meat industry. And I was like, wow, I had no idea. It's funny because I've eaten animals my whole life up until I was like 20-ish, 22. But you don't really realize it until you see videos and you do research for yourself, and then you're like, this is really bad. Like, I don't want to be a part of this. Black people were enslaved for hundreds of years, treated like animals. And now I, as a human, I'm black as well. So it's like, me as a human, I'm gonna go and enslave another species, animals, for my benefit. It's like, it's disgusting. I hate it. It really frustrates me when I think about it, and especially when I put it in alignment with that, my culture and, black people being enslaved for hundreds of years. So
I think that's a really, really interesting angle, actually, and it's like a really humanist approach to the situation of just seeing, like, it's like, well, we always have the conversation all the time in terms of race, and this podcast is going way off on a tangent, but you see life as life and people as people, but yet we are so disjointed from animals as life and respecting that as a life, which is so strange, because you think within you hope, and I mean there's so many conversations about that, but within humans we have I just see people, and I love a person because they're alive, but yet on the class, don't even get me started on that statement exactly. But yet for an animal who is also a living thing and has feelings and has emotions, and yet we don't apply the same logic to that. It's odd, isn't it?
Again, like you said with secondhand clothing, to link it in, it takes generations for things to change. And I think that there have been certain cultures like Rastafarian culture, Ital culture, that they don't eat meat, and the traditional Ethiopian dish with injera, they don't eat meat. So there's a lot of cultures, independent cultures, that don't eat meat. But I think now, as a whole society, as like a Western society, now there's veganism is becoming more popular, and I think that people are just starting to open their eyes. And even if, even just you just walking past a vegan shop every day, you're like, what? Why is everyone vegan, man? I don't really get this. Like, you stopped eating something, and now that's better for you. It doesn't make sense. But I think when you research more into it, it makes sense. And going back to your question again, with the do I think it has an effect on the planet? Of course it does. Like, it's the number one factor. I think it's like 80% of the world's resources, I can't remember the exact fact, are destroyed through eating meat, particularly beef.
Cattle farming, and the rainforests, 100%.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And but I feel like, do you think people know, because there's so many documentaries now coming out about it, there's so much research. Do you think that, and that people claim to care about the planet, and I guess not everyone really does, which is kind of sad. Do you think that people hear that and are too stubborn to care, or they don't think it will really affect them, or do you think people just haven't got that knowledge yet? Or I don't know. I think it's a weird one, isn't it?
I think all three. I think there's some people. I have friends in particular that I know what's going on, but they're either one, in denial, or two, don't really want to change their habits, because no one wants to change, man. We're happy getting up in the morning, wearing our same clothes, going to see our same person, going to the same shop. No one wants to make change, man. Why are we gonna do that, man? It's difficult. Leave it, man. It's fine. But in fact, if we want things to get better, we have to make extreme changes, and that starts with the person you're looking at in the mirror. It starts with yourself. So I think everyone has a different angle on it. Some people don't have the education, but I think now at least the resources are available. And I think most people, in their teens now, Gen Z, would have bumped into something about veganism at some point. So you don't really have an excuse, man. Like, you just research it, you just type it in on the internet and just make it the mind up for yourself.
100%. We are almost out of time, so I
Wow.
just want to do a quick. I know it's literally
That's
flown by.
fine.
I have so many other questions on my list, so I'm furious.
If you want to blast any questions, you can, and I'll give you as short as you can. Be like, boom, 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 boom.
Well, I'm gonna do a weird quiz, this or that, and this
Oh,
is
yeah,
more of
yeah.
just a fun,
Okay.
light-hearted. Let's like pick the pace back up. So, and I don't know if you actually have an answer to this, given the coffee that you've just ordered. But okay, number
That's all
one,
good.
oat milk or almond milk?
Oat milk. I love oat milk. I love oats as well. Yeah.
Love an oat.
I had oat milk this morning. It was so good.
So did I in porridge.
Did
It
you?
was an oat overload. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're
So much oat.
Oat.
I am an oat.
oat to the oath to the oat.
Oh my God, that's your next track. Love it. I'll feature on it if you want.
Yeah. Backing vocals.
What is the best item that you've ever discovered thrifting?
Wow, the best. I got something that comes to mind. I got a Moschino 1980s couture dress which featured
Oh my God.
an ab fab Joanna Lumley. Shout out to Joanna Lumley.
Stop.
Oh, I love Joanna Lumley.
Please tell me you kept it and it's like a
Yeah,
podcast gift.
I've got it. Oh yeah, you can hire it.
I'll hire it.
Hey.
I'll literally pay anything. I love our
Homethings can start. Homethings can start hiring you.
We should start hiring.
All these ideas. Okay, yeah, that's the best thing. I
I think we've
there's
already
loads
tried
of
to
things.
hire you. Vintage bomber jacket or vintage denim jacket?
Bomber jacket. I'm not really into denim. Denim is dope, but bomber jackets, man, like.
I think that's more your vibe.
Yeah. I got a bomber jacket like 2 weeks ago, Averex, and in the pockets of the original MA1 bomber jackets, they actually feature bullets. So there's real bullets in the pockets,
Sheesh.
and that you can't take out.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Right,
just
very
in
basic
just in
jacket.
case you need to take it out. Okay, let's start.
Let's stop it. So hold
Yeah.
it. I feel like we are going off on a tangent in many areas. So would you rather have cult brands or one-off pieces?
What do you mean by cool brand?
As in like Adidas. So like what you're wearing
yeah,
now,
yeah.
would you rather have like a branded piece or just like a random kind of, oh, it's vintage?
No, I'm into. I'm into vintage, man. I'm into just one-off things. I'm like, wow, I've never seen that before.
Love that.
Yeah.
And finally, what's the weirdest thing you've ever bought?
Vintage.
Can be either vintage or new.
Oh, weirdest thing I've ever bought.
A ticket to this podcast.
I think second after a ticket to this podcast, I bought some pretty weird stuff. I buy a lot of like ladies 1960s and 1970s ladies dresses, which I don't know. It's not really that weird, but I guess it's something that people wouldn't expect me to buy.
Yeah,
I'm
I
building
think that's nice.
building the 70s collection. So in 20 years, when everyone's like, "We've got no 70s clothes, man. We need to hire some stuff," and I'm like,
Like,
"I'm your
ka-ching,
boy.
ka-ching, welcome to my wardrobe.
Show me the check, baby."
Oh my God, I love that. So, how can people find you? Where can they go? Where can they stalk you? Where can they find your BBC show? one that's out.
Yeah, they can stalk me as much as they like. Send me a message. I respond to everything. My Instagram is @youth. My name's youth_.id. That's on Instagram. youthgoodyear@gmail.com.
Emails, love that. Dropping in the emails.
Business, darling. And also Youth Club Store on Instagram, on Depop, whatever, man. Just hit me up. And yeah, man, let's connect, man. I'm all about connecting, you know. I just want to connect with
that.
everyone. Let's talk, let's chill.
Only good people though.
I want to come back on this podcast as well.
Come back.
Okay.
Maybe we can do maybe we should just do a sub show. I feel like that would be
Yeah, I'm down with that, yo.
fun.
I'm
We'll
down.
talk
Okay.
off air. We have been get_homethings. Thank you very much for listening. And thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, darling. You're amazing.